Welcome everyone to this webinar. This is a webinar on AWS. It's just an overview of AWS as such. My name is Rahul Gujjar. I am an AWS certified architect and a developer. It's been close to around 2 to 3 years that I have been associated with AWS related projects and programs. I've worked with a number of companies, currently with Tata Communications, and started my career, in fact, way back in 1999. So, I've close to 18 to 19 years in the industry now, and worked in various roles. I've been a solution architect. Of course, I started my journey as a developer and made my way through, and now with the Telepresence Engineering Group. Um, where we have implemented AWS, not all the services. To an extent, it's more of an hybrid cloud model that we follow. But I've been into this space for almost 2 to 3 years, as I said. Right. So, without further ado, let me directly get into what AWS is about. Again, this is just a very high-level overview of AWS and about cloud computing in general. And during this webinar, I'll also be giving you a kind of a hands-on or a demo on a couple of services like IAM and EC2, where we actually spin off an instance and sort of just create a kind of a web server with an Apache web server. Okay, so that's what the agenda would be, and following that, I'll take some questions around this. Right. So let's move on. And so, in order first to understand AWS, let's talk a little bit about cloud computing in general. And I think those were the days, I would say, many years ago, 15, 20 years ago, where cloud was relatively new, and people had all their applications or the products on premises products, as we say, right? So this was the time when people used to, if you want to purchase a product like, for example, Oracle database, right, Enterprise Edition, you had to actually go procure the licenses, install it on your servers, right, and start using it, and sort of maintain those servers or maintain those those licenses, to keep them running. And this was true for any application, any product, any service that you used to take. And something really good happened to all of us, where we started talking about cloud. And when it comes to cloud computing in general, we see that most of these applications, these IT resources, services, these are internet based. So obviously the advantage here is usage of these services anywhere, right? I mean, as long as you have an internet connection. And most of these services and applications go on a pay as you go model. So depends on hourly charges, daily charges, and we no longer talk about licensing as such, right? The more you use, the more you pay, and some of these models also revolve around, if you want to purchase for a longer duration, you probably get more benefits, so that's more about where cloud computing started its journey. And it really provides you a quick and reliable access, I would say. In fact, these days we have good connection, we have good broadband connection from anywhere. You really don't need like a lease line, right, or a T1E1 link or anything like that. So you have even with a good broadband connection, you can still go ahead with it, and this is a very big boon for many startups, I would say, because in the older days, where you are a startup company where you actually wanted to procure everything and then get started, right? So that itself had a lead time, and it used to become difficult. So yeah, I mean, cloud computing has benefits, and with that, of course, let's talk about AWS, because AWS in itself is a cloud services platform, right? And it has got a number of things. It's just not about infrastructure, but it talks about many other services So not only about the virtualized instances, but you get databases, you get your own cloud systems, what we call it as virtual private clouds. Okay, so I'm going to give you a good overview of all the different services of AWS as well. But just at a high level, you would say that it's more than a service. It's kind of a platform in itself, right? And some of the services or some of the applications that they have given are very cutting edge. So I'm going to talk about Lambda a little bit, which is a serverless kind of an architecture. So there's a lot happening, and in fact, nobody had really thought that a company like Amazon, who had a number of server farms. They were more of a ebook selling company. That's what Amazon started with, but they found that there's most of their equipment and the servers are sort of not being utilized to the fullest. And that's when back in 2004 they started thinking about how to sort of give the computing power out to other people. And of course it's could be chargeable. And back in 2008, in fact, they had the first EC2 instance. And of course there was another storage service which is called as S3, simple storage service. These were the initial, the first steps in that direction. And it has grown exponentially. In fact, if you look at the market leaders, AWS is one of them, right? And if you look at today's technologies, cloud computing comes right at the top, right? I mean, it's been there for quite some time, but it's still something which people would like to understand, right? And again, that's why we are having this webinar in terms of helping you to understand what AWS is all about, right? As I've been saying, it consists of a number of services. It's a platform in itself, right? So you have database services, right? So you have database services like DynamoDB. It's a NoSQL database, which means that very elastic in nature. There's no schema that you really need to bother about. It expands, it collapses as you use, right? And as I said, yeah, of course, it goes as a pay as you go kind of a model, right? You have elastic cache. Predominantly people use it for caching. You don't need a database every time. You probably require some caching services for quicker retrievals. People cache sessions data, for example, right? So you require elastic cache. As we all know, this is a service which is readily available, and Amazon also has their own service called Amazon Elastic Cache. And similarly, you have from a relational database point of view, you have RDS, which is called as a relational database system service. You have Redshift, which is acts on a petabyte scale. So you want to do a lot of analytics, then probably use this kind of service, right? From an analytics perspective, since we just talked about analytics, right? From this perspective itself, AWS has given you a number of services. Like for instance, the biggest one that I can talk about is EMR, which is the Elastic Map Reduce, right? Kinesis, Kinesis is like gathering data, real-time data from all different sources, like Facebook, for that matter, Twitter, right? Gather all the data, get those things in an analytic environment with EMR, and churn out reports and do some good analysis, and see how you want to use that data either for marketing or advertising or whatever the case may be, right? So you have these services where you can do analytics, application services, management tools, because this is a big platform in itself. So you definitely need something to really understand whether how the whole platform is behaving, how to manage those. So for instance, you have the most important service in terms of management tools is CloudWatch, right? This is the service where you can really see for any virtualized instance, for instance, right? What's happening, the health checks, and they have a multitude matrices, right? When it comes to monitoring services. So CloudWatch for EC2, CloudWatch for DynamoDB, CloudWatch for EMR, right? So they have different matrices, and the good part about this is some of these matrices could be customizable. So what AWS offers out of the box, if you feel that there's something extra that you would like to monitor, you can always go for it. So these are a number of things are customizable. Cloud formation, another big service that I can talk about, under management tools. As you can see, cloud formation is more about infrastructure provisioning. So we're talking about migration from our current data centers into cloud, and definitely you can't do it like one server at a time. You require some kind of automation, right? And that automation is brought something about by something like cloud formation, right? It gives you a beautiful scripting using JSON or YAML, and provision your resources, provision your instances, provision your databases, and for that matter, you can even provision your private clouds, so a whole lot of things that you can do with cloud formation. All right. And essentially used mainly from a migration perspective, right? Of course, there are a number of things where people not only use something like cloud formation, people use something like Terraform, right? But those again can be integrated with AWS, right? So there's a lot of things that's really happening, right? And this is a platform. So talking about developer tools, you have code commit, code deploy, code pipeline, similar to Jenkins, GitHub, right? GitHub, we can closely relate to code commit, right? Code build, mainly related to any kind of builds that you would like to do, like Maven builds and builds or anything like that, right? Building your own pipelines, so you have Jenkins in our standard world. AWS has given you code pipeline. Okay, these also can be integrated with Jenkins, for instance, also can be integrated with Ansible, for configuration management. So it's not, you can use AWS as a platform in itself completely, it gives you all the things, but at the same time, if you have your existing tools, your existing applications or anything like that, right, and you would like those standardized tools to be integrated with AWS, then those things also can be done. So it doesn't restrict you to only use AWS, right? That's the beauty of it. Mobile services, right? The biggest one that people use is the API gateways, because this is the microservices world. All right, we're talking about Dockerized instances, right? Virtualized instances, and since we're talking microservices, we're talking about, to an extent, we're talking about APIs. So it gives you a number of things. Okay, I mean, the list goes on and on. In fact, what I've covered here in this slide is just very few of those. In fact, there are more than 1,000 services. All right, and every month, every year, in fact, every month, I would say, they launch at least one service at a time, and this sometimes becomes very difficult to keep up with it, right? But yeah, I mean, it's still growing, still growing. All right, and to understand AWS further, it the way, since it's a platform in itself, and you can access it from anywhere. They have divided this whole globally. They have a number of data centers where they have hosted the servers, and they talk in terms of regions. All right, like for instance, when it talks to, you look at number 2 in India. Okay, India in itself, we have a region. Okay, so that region is called as the Mumbai region. Okay, Mumbai Asia Pacific. In fact, Asia Pacific has other places as well. You have a region in Singapore. All right. Now the reason for these regions is, when you're accessing AWS, you would like your instances or your servers, or whatever service you want to use, to be closest to where you are. You don't want to spin an instance all the way to US, and because of any latency issues, your broadband issues, or whatever the case might be, it becomes slow, and you don't find much use in that case, right? But AWS has regions, and other than regions, it also has what we call as availability zones. So within each region, all right, we have different data centers, and these data centers are typically referred to as as availability zones, okay, by AWS. And the reason for these different availability zones is simple, that you have something like June 26th, with what happened in Mumbai a few years ago, where you had a suddenly it got flooded, right? Unfortunately, you had that only one data center, and something like that happened, a natural disaster. You can't do much about it, right? To avoid such situations, they have come up with availability zones. You have a number of data centers in different flood zones, all right, hosted in different buildings, in fact, all right. You don't know, you don't come to know that, okay, whatever instance you're spinning up is actually is located, or probably happening in Mumbai, or probably it could happen in Pune, or could have it happen in Chennai or Bangalore or any other place, okay. So you don't know. But the biggest point here is, every region has got multiple available zones, okay, at a minimum two. And as you can see, something in like US East, North Virginia region, you have 6 different availability zones, right? Tokyo has 3, India or Mumbai has currently 2. Okay, that doesn't mean 2 buildings or 2 data centers. It is again spread across, all right. So that's how the whole infrastructure is laid out by AWS, Amazon, which gives you this added advantage that your services are accessible anytime, anywhere, all right. And this infrastructure that we talked about is the thing that makes AWS a very highly available, fault tolerant, and scalable kind of a platform, okay, which will help you have that elasticity, or how you can scale up and scale down, okay, how you can scale out and scale in your services, all right. So it gives you a whole lot of things, right? I think to an extent I've covered some of these. Probably I didn't cover the networking side of things, right? But yes, it gives you a number of things when it comes to networks. We talk about virtual private clouds, and in the virtual private clouds, you're talking about an internet gateways. We're talking about subnets. We're talking about route tables, right? All these things can be provisioned with AWS, all right, and it's pretty easy to do. I mean, these are the days of DevOps. So we're talking about a developer also able to do some of the infrastructure provisioning, and probably also able to do some amount of test kind of things, right? So from a DevOps perspective, you can think this as one big platform giving you everything, right? It gives you DNS service as well, something like Route 53. If you can see here under networking, you have Route 53, right? So if you have a domain like www.example.com, and you would like to transfer that to AWS, make use of your Route 53, right? They will host it for you, okay. Or for that matter, you want a new domain, you just go to Route 53 and give you a hosting. They'll give you a hosting zone, right? So the number of things that you can do, right? Messaging services that I can just quickly talk about, okay. I would really like to go into the demo now, but probably this is the last one, and of course I can take answers, questions later. But a simple messaging services, right? When it comes to you want to define workflows, orchestration, some things like that, okay, use SWF. You want a simple queuing service, which is like SQS, right? A queue helps you in really having decoupled environments, decoupled architecture. Use SQS. You want something on notification, then like, okay, an alarm goes out, something like a trigger should happen, and you should get an alarm of what has gone wrong with your service or your applications, right? We integrate your things with SNS, right, which is on the messaging, right? I'm talking about SNS. So number of things, I mean, there's no end to this, right? I mean, but these are the essential ones. In case if you're really looking forward to an AWS an AWS certification in architecture, a developer, or a sysops, these are certain services which you should absolutely know, okay. So I've just highlighted the ones which are key, all right. AWS, if you look at this, AWS in itself is a very big API. You can think about it. where you are accessing using internet, right? So and because you are accessing, we are talking about key management systems as well. We are talking about IAM. IAM is the identity and access management. Who can access, who you want to access, how you can create users, how you can create roles, a number of things. Okay, so I'm going to today, for today's webinar, I'm going to focus on two things. I'm going to show you how you can start with AWS, real basic things. We're going to start with the IAM, the essentials of IAM, and the second thing is the basic of virtualization. So I'm going to spin an EC2 instance, right, and just show you how easy it is. So you get like a real hands-on experience, right? So that's what we're about to do. Right, so let's get directly into the demo now of an IAM and EC2. um, yeah, certification path, if you're really looking for it, and these are the AWS architects and developers, these are the hottest certifications going into the market. The good thing about AWS is they have also introduced a certificate for non-techie guys. But you definitely want to understand what cloud is. You want to probably work on uh, you know any kind of proposals or anything like that. Okay, you can very well go ahead and become AWS certified professional. uh, this is typically the path. People go for an architect certification first, because this gives you a whole good idea about the entire thing. This is my recommendation as well, because I've done it this way. So I did my architect certification, developer certification. You can also try for sysops if you really want to get a little deeper into like a sysadmin kind of a thing. Okay, and the next level, the next hurdle, I would say, or the biggest thing is the DevOps professionals and the architect professionals. So these are the professional level certifications. They also have specialized certifications for cloud, for network. Okay, but at least these are big five, I would say. If you want this under your belt, you'd be in hot demand. All right, let me tell you that. Okay, I am delivering trainings through Knowledge Hut. Number of things that I take them through to take my students through. We cover most of these as lab exercise. Okay, because there's no way to really learn about AWS than being hands-on. Okay, so 80% is almost hands-on. The certain services like API gateways, which you really can't show in a lab, right? I mean, you can't really do that. So those few things which we sort of just show you the demo, not a hands-on demo, but for that matter, 80% is hands-on, right? We also give you a number of sample papers, which helps you to prepare, so you really know your weak areas, which you would like to go ahead and read more about. Okay, white papers, we help you with those, which ones which you should read, definitely what sections of those white papers you should read. Cheat sheets, we help you with cheat sheets. So cheat sheets are something which you would really want to quickly go through before your exam, before just entering your exam center, right? So we help you with that. And my suggestion is, please go and visit knowledge.com. We are doing this both in classroom based as well as virtual in many cities. Okay, please do go and visit, right? That was the last part from my end, right? I hope this was showed you something, probably if you haven't seen it before. Right? Okay, all right, I just got a question: can I host PHP server on EC2? Absolutely, absolutely. As in the demo you would have seen, the instance that I had spun up, it talked about PHP as well, right? So you can actually go ahead and build a complete LAMP stack, a Linux with Apache, a PHP, and MySQL, right? Which what we refer to as LAMP stack, right? You can very well do that. It's all inbuilt, right? Okay, so yes, you can do that. Okay, I just got one. It says, is there IonCube installed, or can we install on EC2? Well, of course, if you want to install any other, virtualized part, you can go very well. You can go and install IonCube, or for that matter, VM, the virtual box itself, But I don't know, I mean, in what kind of situations you do that. It's just an instance, just like your host machine, right? You can very well go and install anything that you want. Okay, but just be aware that when you do that, okay, ensure that you have the you have selected an instance with a good number of CPU cycles, a good number of instant storage. Okay, because a number of things may not work with the default one. So just be careful with that if you want to do that. All right, but you can definitely go and install anything just as on your local box. Just got a last question. I'll just take this as a last question because we're just almost out of time. I am a telecom. I think this has come from Kumar Gaurav. I am a telecom person. I want to change my field. How AWS is useful for me? Okay, great question. The reason it's great is because I am myself from the telecom background. All right, so um, you know, uh, in fact, for a telecom professional like yourself, Gaurav, uh, you probably are aware to an extent about what goes on the telecom world, right? You're talking about networking, you're talking about, I don't know what field you are in, but you're talking about a number of things, right? Probably you're from billing or something like that. You're talking about applications. You're talking about the instances itself, servers, data centers, right? So since you're from telecom, and this is a good platform really to understand everything. Okay, so far if you have been restricted to only a particular service or particular application or particular domain within telecom, okay, this will definitely help you to understand the whole big picture, right? Understand different services, and it's not very difficult because if you are from networking end, we take you step by step in terms of what we mean by database. Okay, so if you look at these architect level programs that we have, we talk about from basics. Okay, so we think that, okay, you have a basic understanding of what a Linux instance is, or you need to have a little bit of base. Okay, understand IT in general, I would say, but we take you through the whole stuff. Okay, how to spinning, as I just showed you how to spin it up, what precisely databases are and everything like that. We take you through whole thing, as well as it will help you to understand other services which are not there. So be it in telecom or any other sector, this will certainly help you. I would really like to thank everyone for being on this webinar. I really hope that this was useful. Please do go and visit Knowledge Hut in case if you are looking for any trainings around AWS. We have a number of things, not just AWS, non-AWS also we offer, like on Microsoft Azure and other things if you're interested. But just an initial one. All right, I hope to have other webinars. We are going to have few more with other panelists as well. So all the best with your journey on cloud. Last question I got was about white papers. Okay, let me just show you, since you just mentioned this about white papers. I probably have stopped the share of my screen, but if you go to the AWS and the simple AWS, as I just showed you about creating the account, you can just go, you'll see documentation under more documentation, and there you will see white papers, right? So just explore the AWS website, or you just go and just simple search AWS white papers, and there you are. Okay, you should get it. All right, thank you folks, thanks for your time. All right, I hope this was useful. You can always connect to me. Thanks for your time again. All right, and hope to see you soon. Thank you guys. Bye for now.